I've never told anyone the full story of what happened to me in Nevada. The parts I've shared, the parts that made it into the police report, those were bad enough. But there are details I left out. Details that would have made me sound insane. Details that still make me wonder if I was ever meant to leave that rest stop alive. It was 2 years ago. I was 26, driving cross-country after a breakup, trying to outrun my problems. I'd been on the road for 3 days and had made it to the empty stretch of highway that cuts through northern Nevada. If you've never driven there at night, you can't understand what I'm about to describe. It's a void. Miles of absolute nothing. No lights, no towns, no signs of human existence. Just black desert and a 2-lane road that seems to go on forever. By 11 p.m., I was struggling to stay awake. My eyes were heavy, and I started drifting in my lane. I knew I needed to stop, but there was nothing out there. No hotels, no gas stations, nothing. That's when I saw the rest stop. It appeared suddenly, like it materialized out of the darkness. A small pull-off with a parking lot, a single flickering light on a tall pole, and a concrete building. Nothing special. I almost drove past it. Something about it felt wrong, even then. But I was exhausted and just needed to close my eyes for a few minutes. I pulled in and parked under the light. That's when I noticed the van. It was parked at the far end of the lot. A white van with no windows in the back. No lights on, no movement. Something about its position bothered me. It wasn't parked normally. It was angled, facing the main parking area, like someone inside wanted a clear view of anyone who pulled in. I told myself I was being paranoid. I locked my doors, reclined my seat, and let the exhaustion pull me under. I don't know exactly when I woke up, but I know why. Something was wrong. I could feel it before I opened my eyes, a presence, the unmistakable sensation that I was no longer alone. I opened my eyes, and I saw the face. It was inches from my window. A man's face, pressed so close to the glass, his breath was fogging it up. He was staring directly at me, with an intensity that felt like physical pressure. He wasn't moving, he wasn't blinking, he was just staring. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I was frozen. He was tall and thin with a narrow face and deep-set eyes. His skin was pale, almost grey, and there was something fundamentally wrong about his features. It was like looking at a mask that was almost, but not quite, human. And he was smiling, not a normal smile. A smile that was too wide, that showed too many teeth, that didn't reach his eyes. A smile that said he knew exactly how scared I was, and he was enjoying it. We stared at each other for what felt like hours. Then, slowly, he raised his hand. He placed his palm flat against my window, spread his fingers wide, pressed. He held his hand there for a long moment, then his fingers began to curl. Slowly, one by one, until his fingernails were pressing against the glass. And he began to scrape them down the window. The sound was high-pitched and grating, like nails on a chalkboard, but slower, more deliberate. That sound broke the paralysis. My hand shot out and grabbed the keys. I twisted them in the ignition. The engine roared to life, but he didn't move. He just stood there, smiling that horrible smile, as I threw the car into reverse and floored it. As I swung the car around, my headlights swept across the parking lot. And I saw them. The van's back doors were open now. And there were more of them. 3, maybe 4 figures, standing in a loose semicircle between me and the road. They were perfectly still, their heads tilted at identical angles, watching me. In the half-second my headlights hit them, I saw their faces. They were all smiling. The same smile, too wide, too many teeth. I floored it and drove straight at them. They didn't move, they just watched. At the last second I swerved around them and shot onto the highway. I drove for 2 hours without stopping, hands shaking, heart pounding. When I finally reached a town, I pulled into a gas station. I thought about calling the police, but what would I tell them? A man smiled at me? They'd think I was crazy. But here's the part I've never told anyone. When I got out of the car, I checked the driver's side door, looking for scratches on the window. There were no scratches, but there was something else. On the door handle, right where you'd grip it, there were smudges. Fresh fingerprints. Someone had tried to open my door. Not while I was awake, but while I was asleep. If my doors hadn't been locked. I don't let myself finish that thought. I've tried to find that rest stop since. I've searched maps, even driven that highway during the day. It doesn't exist. There's no record of it ever being there. Either I imagined it, or that rest stop only appears for certain people. I don't drive at night anymore, and I always check my door handles, because I know they're still out there. Somewhere on those dark highways, waiting in the shadows, smiling those impossible smiles. And I wonder how many other travelers have pulled into that parking lot looking for a place to rest. I wonder how many of them drove away. And I try not to think about what happened to the ones who didn't. Thanks for listening. If you like this story, make sure to subscribe for more. Stay safe out there. I don't go outside after dark anymore. I can't. Because when the sun goes down and the shadows grow long, I remember what was watching me from those trees. And I know, with absolute certainty, that if I hadn't run when I did, I would have become just another person who went into those mountains and never came back. This happened 3 winters ago in the mountains of Colorado. I was 24 and just desperate to escape my life. I'd just gotten out of a really bad relationship and I craved complete, total isolation. No phone, no internet, no human contact. I found this cabin listing on a small local website. It was off-grid, miles from the nearest town, at the end of a winding dirt road. The owner said it was perfect for solitude. She was wrong. I was never alone out there, not for a single second. I arrived on a Thursday afternoon. The cabin was exactly what I wanted. Small, simple, remote. The trees pressed in close on all sides, like a wall blocking out the rest of the world. That first night, I slept better than I had in months. The silence was complete. The darkness was absolute. I felt safe. That feeling didn't last. The next morning, I went for a hike. Fresh snow had fallen overnight, and the forest was pristine. I'd been walking for about 20 minutes when I noticed them. Footprints. They were in the snow beside the trail. Human footprints, clear and distinct. They ran parallel to the path before just veering off into the trees. I stopped, and my heart started to beat a little faster. There shouldn't be anyone else out here. The owner had told me there were no other properties for miles. But these prints were fresh. The edges were still crisp. I looked around, but the forest was so dense I couldn't see more than 20 feet in any direction. Any of those shadows could have been hiding something. I went back to the cabin and locked the door. For the rest of the day, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. But as the sun set and darkness crept through the trees, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. That night, around 10 p.m., I heard them. Footsteps, crunching snow, slow and rhythmic, getting closer. I sat completely still, barely breathing. The footsteps circled the cabin, not approaching, just circling, around and around. I could hear them pass each window, a slow, patient patrol. After about 10 minutes, they stopped, somewhere near the front of the cabin. Then, complete silence. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the door, waiting. Eventually, I heard the footsteps again, moving away this time, fading into the forest until they disappeared. I didn't sleep that night. I pushed a table against the door and sat in the corner with a fireplace poker, watching the windows. In the morning, I went outside to check. What I found made my blood turn to ice. The footprints circled the entire cabin, a continuous loop, repeated over and over. But that wasn't the worst part. At every single window, the footprints stopped and turned inward. There were impressions in the snow where someone had pressed up against the glass, cupping their hands to see inside. They had watched me all night as I sat there in the corner, clutching the poker. The footprints at the front door were the most disturbing, dozens of them, overlapping. Someone had stood there for a very long time. And there was something else. Finger marks in the snow, like someone had crouched down and just run their fingers through it, again and again, while they waited. I followed the footprints to see where they led. They went toward the tree line and just stopped at the base of a large pine tree. Then they vanished, like whoever made them had evaporated or climbed. Slowly, with a growing sense of dread, I looked up. 15 feet up, wedged in the branches, there was a shape. A person. They were pressed against the trunk, arms and legs wrapped around it, perfectly still, watching me. I couldn't see their face clearly, just the outline of a body and two eyes that seemed to catch the morning light. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. Then it moved, just its head, a slow tilt to the side, like a curious animal. Then it started to climb down. I ran. I got inside the cabin, grabbed my keys and phone, and sprinted to my car. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely get the key in the ignition. As I backed out, my headlights swept across the trees, and I saw them. Not one figure. 3. Standing at the tree line, perfectly still, watching me. And even from that distance, I could tell they were smiling. I drove to the nearest town and went straight to a general store. I told the old man behind the counter what happened. He didn't seem surprised. "That property," he said slowly. "We've had problems with it for years." He told me people stay up there, and some of them come back. Wrong. Changed. And a few of them don't come back at all. I asked about the people in the trees. He just shook his head. "Nobody knows who they are," he said, "or what they are. Some folks say they're just squatters, drifters who went feral. Others say there's something else, something that's always been up there." He looked at me with this sense of resignation. "You're lucky," he said. "They let you go. They don't always let people go." The police went to the cabin, but the fresh snow had covered everything. No evidence. The case went nowhere. But I know what I saw. I know they were real, watching me from the moment I arrived, circling that cabin, looking through the windows while I slept, waiting. Waiting for what? I still don't know, and that's what terrifies me the most. What were they going to do if I'd stayed one more night? How many others have stayed in that cabin? How many of them are still up in those mountains, somewhere in the trees, watching the next person who comes looking for solitude? Maybe they're watching you right now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more. I haven't slept through the night in 3 years. Every single night I wake up at exactly 3:14 a.m. My eyes snap open, my heart races, and I just lie there in the darkness, listening, waiting. Because my body remembers what happened, even when my mind tries to forget. And some nights, I swear I still hear the footsteps. It started as a romantic getaway. My wife and I rented a beach house on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. A beautiful place on stilts at the end of a long, isolated road. The listing promised privacy and seclusion. No neighbors for nearly half a mile. We should have asked why a property that beautiful was available on such short notice. We should have wondered why the price was so low. We should have paid attention to the single review that just said, "Do not stay here, trust me." But we didn't. We arrived late that Saturday afternoon and the house was stunning. Weathered wood, a wraparound deck, a cheerful blue door. Everything was perfect. Except for the smell. It was faint at first, barely noticeable under the salt air and cleaning products, but it was there. Something sour, organic, like old sweat, like someone had been living in an enclosed space for days without bathing. My wife didn't seem to notice, so we just opened the windows, and soon the smell was gone. I wish I had followed it to its source right then, because if I had, I would have found him before he found us. That first night I woke up at 3:14 a.m. I didn't know why. The room was dark and silent, my wife sleeping peacefully beside me. But my heart was pounding like I'd just run a marathon. I lay there, frozen, and that's when I heard it. A soft thump from downstairs, then another, then the unmistakable creak of a floorboard under weight. Someone was in the house. The footsteps were slow, deliberate. They moved from the living room toward the hallway, toward the stairs, toward us. Then they stopped, right at the bottom of the staircase. I don't know how long I lay there, my lungs burning from holding my breath. Every cell in my body screamed at me to do something, but I couldn't move. Eventually, the footsteps resumed, moving away from the stairs, and I heard the front door click softly shut. The next morning, I searched the house. Every door was locked, every window secure. I convinced myself I'd imagined it. The second night, it happened again. 3:14 a.m., eyes snapping open, heart racing, but this time the footsteps weren't downstairs. They were in the hallway, right outside our bedroom door. I heard breathing, slow, raspy breathing, the sound of someone standing inches away, just waiting. My wife woke up this time, grabbing my arm. "Is someone there?" she whispered. I couldn't answer. We just lay there, listening to that breathing. Then, slowly, I heard the doorknob begin to turn. I watched it rotate, centimeter by centimeter, until it stopped. We'd locked it. Thank God we'd locked it. The knob rotated back, the breathing continued for another minute, and then the footsteps retreated. The next day, I searched the house again, determined to find an answer. I opened the utility closet at the end of the downstairs hall. It was small and dark, just a water heater and some cleaning supplies. But I smelled it. That same sour smell, only stronger now. Behind the water heater, I found a stained, dirty sleeping bag. Beside it were empty food wrappers, water bottles filled with a yellow liquid, and photographs, Polaroids of my wife and me, sleeping. Dozens of them, taken from inside our bedroom, from angles that meant whoever took them had been standing directly over our bed. As I stumbled backward, my hands shaking, I heard my wife scream from upstairs. I ran, taking the stairs 3 at a time, and found her pointing at the second bedroom door, which was now open. It was closed, she said. I just walked past and it was open. I looked inside. On the bed was another sleeping bag, and on the pillow, a fresh indentation. Someone had been sleeping in that bed while we were in the house. Then I heard a soft rustling from the closet in that room. I walked to the doors. I could hear breathing from inside, that same slow, raspy breathing. I grabbed the handle, and the breathing stopped. In that moment of hesitation, I heard another sound from downstairs, the front door opening, heavy footsteps coming up the stairs, not trying to be quiet anymore. There were 2 of them. I grabbed my wife and we ran to the master bedroom, slamming the door and shoving a dresser against it. As my wife screamed our address to 911, we heard them. One at our door, one outside our window. They didn't try to break in, they just stood there, and they waited. When the police finally arrived, they were gone. But the officers found the sleeping bags, the photos, and something else in the crawl space under the house, a calendar. It had dates marked off, with notes about our routines, what time we slept when we left the house. The last entry, on the day we ran, just said, "Tonight." The police never found them. They told me it was too practiced to be their first time. They're still out there, in someone else's vacation rental, watching them sleep, waiting for the right moment, and those people will never know. Not until it's too late. Thanks for listening. If this story chilled you, be sure to subscribe for more. Stay safe out there.